How would you describe your relationship with your mother or maybe your father? Would you describe it in positive ways, or would you digress and say, you know what? They weren't as positive as everybody thought. Maybe there was some abuse. Maybe there was some trauma bonding. Maybe there was some narcissistic tendencies, maybe even sociopath and psychopath tendencies. Would you describe your mother, your father, or both parents as being loving, giving, and being very selfless throughout your childhood development? Well, I think this video is going to be a little bit different than some of the other ones that I've done on parents, because I'm really going to zone in on, parents who are not very selfless. They have a very narcissistic, unhealthy, I want to live through you kind of set or pattern of behaviors and emotions, and it can really destroy every ounce of who you are as an independent human being. Parents are supposed to support us, right? They're supposed to love us and really be those parents that, we can hold on to in times when we need them the most. We're also supposed to develop a certain emotional and psychological bond to our parents that allows us to test things out and grow and develop in the world. But when you have a very selfish and self-centered, egotistical parent who is quite clinically a narcissist, it's a little bit difficult to experience all those fluffy and wonderful emotions and warm feelings about your parent. Every parent that is a parent isn't a good parent. Sometimes these kind of parents should have never brought a child into the world. They're not healthy, they're not skilled enough, and they're not willing to be selfless and give. And so that's what creates problems for you as you develop over time. So in today's video, I'm going to focus on the neurobiology and the emotional and psychological aspects of attachment. But before we jump in, let me briefly introduce myself in case you were new. My name is Tamara, and I'm an internationally and board certified trauma therapist. I'm also licensed in mental health, and I specialize in treating children, teens, and families, as well as adults who are dealing with trauma. Let's jump in. Anytime I discuss attachment, there's always tears in my office. It is really a difficult conversation to have because a lot of the people who consult with me internationally are struggling, not only in their relationships with other people, but also their relationship with their parents. And the reason why they are struggling in their adult relationships with other people is because of the kind of parents they have had. I personally cannot say that I understand the avoidant and anxious attachment that a child and an adult child can have with their parent, outside of my own personal world. I've had a really good mother, and she's been very dedicated. I've mentioned her a few times in videos, live chats in the past. We're very close. But the issue here is, not so much that my mom is a good mom. The issue is I can't conceptualize how a parent, right? Even if my mom wasn't a good mom, I cannot conceptualize how a parent can neglect to bond with their children, can be so emotionally and psychologically devoid that they cannot relate to their child. It is hard for me to conceptualize, even as a psychotherapist, even as someone who sees parents every day, all day, and has been seeing parents for 14 years. It is hard to conceptualize, and I'm sure it's even harder for you. If you feel like you've never developed a healthy child-parent or parent-child relationship, that's sad because you need that, right? We as human beings are born into this world to need love and attachment, and that's what we desire. But if you're not getting that, it's really depressing, and it can really destroy your adult relationships over time. It can also destroy your self-esteem, and it can cause a lot of challenges as you develop and continue to develop in your life. Let me briefly explain some attachment theory terms and some ideas, just so you'll have that as the foundation of this video. Attachment. Here's the definition of attachment right here on the screen. Attachment basically examines, attachment theory I should call it, basically examines the caregiver-child bond and how it develops over time. There are specific categories that you should be aware of, if you're not already, that really does focus on the emotional attachment that a child, an infant, and a parent, a mother, primarily a mother, develops over time. Now, the first kind of attachment that, develops between a parent and a child, especially at birth, is secure. Now, that particular attachment, and here's the definition right here on the screen, that particular attachment is warm and loving, it's healthy, right? It develops over time into a really healthy relationship where that child can kind of reference that parent as a safety zone, can go back to that parent and say, you know what, mom and dad, I'm scared, I'm coming back to you. Little babies, right? Little kids, they do this all the time. Maybe they're a little bit afraid at the playground, or maybe they're a little bit nervous about daycare, and they kind of, I'm sure you've seen this, and maybe you've done this as well in the past, you kind of stay close to your parent. You don't explore because you're not sure about the environment. When you have a secure attachment with your parent, you can look at your parent and say, I'm a little bit nervous, and that parent can look at you and say, it's okay, you don't have to be afraid, why don't you go over there and jump in and see if you can make some friends. When you have a secure attachment with your parent, that's probably what you're going to do. You're going to go over, see some other kids, and you're going to, develop some kind of communication with them. And over time, you become friends, and boom, you're into a new situation, and you're no longer afraid. As you develop over time, that secure attachment is even better, right? Because maybe you're going to go to your mom and dad about a new marriage that you are in, right? Maybe you're going to go to your mom and dad about going to a particular college or making a long-term decision. You can go to that parent like I can with my mom, and you can say, I'm a little bit nervous, I don't know what to expect. That secure attachment that you have developed over time with your parent, they're going to be able to say, it's okay, here's a few things I want you to look out for and consider, but I think you're going to do great. There's an equal exchange of love, warmth, and affection, caring. There's a bond, right? You can always reference that parent no matter how old you are. If you have an insecure attachment, that's the next category, you're not going to have that, right? You're going to be a little bit uncertain about your parent. You're probably not going to want to hear what they have to say. That parent does not make you feel secure. They do not make you feel safe. They do not make you feel loved and cared for, right? So that insecure attachment is very opposite to the secure attachment, right? Just think of it this way. The secure attachment is one way, right? That's the safety zone. Insecure is the complete opposite of that. It's completely different. And you can feel that down in your soul. You don't feel that connection, like somebody is holding you, right? There's this lack of emotional and psychological connection for sure. Now, the anxious ambivalent attachment, that is also detrimental as you develop over time, because here's what happens. You are really, you're seeking approval, but you're never granted that by the parent. So, it's like that parent just doesn't approve of anything that you do. They're distant from you. You don't know how to take that parent from one minute to the next. You don't know if you can trust them or not trust them, or trust them one day and not trust them another day, right? It's really this roller coaster. It's this up and down flow in your relationship and attachment with the parent. And so, over time, that develops insecurities within you, and you begin to approach life in that way as well. Up and down, back and forth, roller coaster, right? Your emotions, your thoughts, your feelings, your relationships, your experiences, all of that is unstable because of this anxious, ambivalent, avoidant kind of bond that you've had with your parent. Now, when you're an avoidant attachment, when you're in that avoidant attachment with the parent, or that avoidant bond, we can say, there is this feeling that you are so insignificant to the parent, right? You're not connected to that parent. You don't feel like they respect and love and care about you, your thoughts, your feelings, your behaviors. You may even feel like the parent's permissive, right? They're more on a friendship level with you, and they may or they may not like you some days. They may or they may not approve of you some days, right? You may also feel like this parent avoids being a parent to you. You're not important to them. in their world. You might even begin to feel like you're a burden, and as you develop over time underneath that parent, you begin to see all relationships that way. You begin to worry about your own relationships because maybe your avoidant attachment happens or is being displayed, in your own relationships. Maybe you're avoidant as well in some ways, and anxious and ambivalent as an adult. I think the final stage would be disorganized, and that's just like you're anxious. That parent is you're very confused as to what they want and need, what they desire. You may even feel intense anger and resentment towards this parent, right? You may even begin to feel volatile in some ways, I've seen really disorganized children, even in my practice with their parents. They have this disorganized attachment. And what I've noticed is that they tend to be very angry and volatile in the play therapy room. They crash toys, they pull baby doll heads off, they throw Barbies down, they throw blocks, and sometimes they have really full-blown temper tantrums. And I know then and there what's going on, especially if the parent does not react. If the parent does not react to the child's emotional distress, I know right then and there there's an attachment issue here, and this is not okay. I'm going to have to address that parent. I'm sure that, you've dealt with this as well growing up. If you have a disorganized attachment or bond with your parent, there's a lot of intensity, there's a lot of emotional intensity, a lot of anger, a lot of resentment. You may break things, you may throw things, you may slam things, scream and yell, pull your hair out. Some people even pull their eyebrows out and their eyelashes out. They cut themselves, right? There's a lot of intense rage and built up anger that can just destroy you, and especially destroy you in that quote unquote disorganized bond with your parent. So what is this going to look like? What is this going to look like as an adult, right? You have a poor attachment with this narcissistic, self-centered parent. What is this going to look like? Well, let me highlight some things for you. So the first thing that you are likely to see in a parent that is like this, right? You have an unhealthy attachment with this parent. They are narcissistic, they're sociopathic, they're unhealthy. More than likely, they are going to dominate you. They're going to dominate your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors as an adult. You're not going to be able to have a relationship with your parent, with this other adult that is secure, that is healthy, that is compassionate, right? There's not going to be this healthy exchange of ideas and emotions, right? You may find yourself feeling extremely controlled by this parent no matter what. Your marriage is controlled, the place you live is controlled, the job you work is controlled, the kind of friends you keep is controlled, the way you think, feel, and behave is controlled. Everything in your life is dominated by this particular parent, There's no healthy, equal exchange of adult ideas, feelings, thoughts, behaviors. It is really a juvenile kind of relationship, okay? So you're going to be dominated. The next thing is that they may shame you and play mind games, right? These kind of narcissistic, self-centered, really emotionally unhealthy parents, they play mind games, right? One minute they may be on your side, the next minute they're not. They may be flirting with your fiance or flirting with your boyfriend. I've seen that. And it shocks me. I'm like, oh my God, there's some flirtation between this daughter and this daughter's fiance or boyfriend, I should say, and this mother. Like the bond and the attachment and the boundary between this mother and her daughter's fiance and boyfriend is not okay. I've seen that in some really dysfunctional families, That's hard to digest. I've also seen affairs in families like this, where the parent plays mind games. They're in and out, they're off and on, they're hot, they're cold, right? There's no pattern of behavior that is balanced for a long period of time. This parent is like a roller coaster, up and down, These kind of parents are also permissive, right? So they want to be your friend. They want to have a relationship with you that's fun and happy-go-lucky. They don't have a boundary that's a parental boundary. And so these kind of parents may get upset with you, right? You're not as mature, or you embarrass them, right? Your reputation isn't good. You're too depressed. You didn't get a job, right? You haven't gotten married yet. You haven't had kids yet. These kind of parents will most likely shame you. Again, they're narcissistic, they're unhealthy, they're dysfunctional. They want to look good. And if you don't make them look good, that's on you. That's kind of the way that they feel, The next thing that you're likely to see is overly high expectations. They expect you to reach a certain standard. And as a matter of fact, they live through you, right? These kind of parents may, try to control and dominate who you date so that they can experience the kind of wedding they never had, so that they can have grandchildren, so they can have, other people to raise, right? Maybe they felt like they failed with you, and maybe the grandchildren are a second chance, a rebound for them, right? I've seen that a lot. You may also find these particular parents get really hard on you, and if you don't meet their expectations, they put you out of the house, they stop paying for things for you, they neglect to love and care about you. They're self-centered. I mean, think of what a narcissist is. I talk about it a lot on this channel. Here's a few videos here around me. This is the parent that I'm talking about. They are very much unstable. And if you had a really unhealthy attachment, it's just the narcissism and the unhealthy attachment with that parent is destructive. It's traumatizing. The next thing is possessively close, right? So, they may want to move in with you and live with you only to control you. They may move near your work site or your place of employment so they can visit you for lunch every day, but that's only to make you be nice to people because you have to make them look good. I once had a family that my coworker was working with, and I actually took them on because they needed a lot of trauma therapy, and this was like over 9 years ago. And I really saw that dysfunctional family is not only having poor attachment trauma, or attachment trauma, I should call it, but poor attachment, poor bonds, and narcissism at the core of everything. And the father actually moved right next door to where his daughter worked. She was employed as a nanny, and he moved right next door. Why? Not because he wanted to support her in her new job, right? But more so because he wanted to dominate how nice she was. He wanted to tell her how to raise the kids. He wanted to tell her what not to do so that she didn't ruin not only his reputation, but her own. So he was really obsessive, and his thoughts were really obsessive compulsive, and he had to make sure that he had some control over her. So he moved right next door to her job site. It was horrible. It was horrible. So these kind of parents may be possessively close, okay? The next thing is your independence is not respected. More than likely, this parent's going to want to live through you. So they're not going to want you to be independent. You're not going to go date somebody I don't approve of. You're not going to marry somebody I really don't like, You're not going to move to a neighborhood that I don't think is where you should be, You're not going to travel overseas because it's dangerous there. These kind of parents totally disregard your ability to be independent. And as a matter of fact, they may try to brainwash you and tell you that you're not capable. And that's the only way that they can control you. They're narcissistic, and they have a really poor attachment with you. So they don't really lose. You know what I mean? The only time they lose is when you grow up and you start pushing back and you mature and you start waking up and you start seeing them for who they really are. Okay? That's what gets them. The next thing is, they have this pervasive tendency to not only control you, but to belittle you. Again, they don't want you to develop. They don't want you to mature. They don't want you to become independent. So they may actually tell you you're a failure. They may emotionally and psychologically and verbally abuse you to push you into a corner where they want you, right? Because they lose if you come out of that mindset. They lose if you mature and develop. They feel that they need to control you at all times. So there's this chronic, pervasive pattern of trying to control your life. Grandiosity, superiority, and judgment. Okay, they are superior. They think that they are better than they really are. They think that you should meet every expectation they have, and so are the people that live around them and work with them, and the list goes on. Their friends, extended family is what I'm trying to say. They feel like everybody has to meet their expectations, right? So they feel like they should be superior at all times. You're insubordinate, right, to them. There's a poor attachment, and they're narcissistic, right? So you're this small to them in their world. You need to do everything that they want you to do in order for you to be approved by them, okay? They may also judge you. They judge everything you think, everything you say, everything you express, right? They judge your political affiliation, your emotional ties. They judge your work side. They judge your relationships. They are judgy, for lack of a clinical term, they are judgmental. And again, they are grandiose. So they may actually feel like they are the best thing since sliced bread, as my grandmother used to say. And you don't see it like that. But in their mind, in their world, they are important, right? So there's like this delusional grandiosity and superiority. And that's really what's wrong with the narcissist, right? They believe they're above. These kind of things are tough, and especially when you're an adult child, when you're a child growing up with a poor attachment with these kind of parents, and then when you become an adult and really start to see who they are, it is scary. It's even more traumatizing, if you ask me, as an adult, because you've had this poor relationship with your parent all throughout your life, and now they're trying to control your world. Everything that you like and desire and want, they're trying to control, and that can be very, very traumatizing. This is a tough topic, so I promise you I'm coming back with another video like this. Thank you so much for being with me in this video today, guys. Go ahead and give this video a thumbs up if it was helpful, and hit that subscribe and bell button if you want to continue to get videos like this. I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.